on any questions we might have, how many more people join, any concerns that they might have. But for us, it's business as usual. And when you are dealing with potential customers in a business market, there are, like we've identified when we refer to the complexity of the transactions, why it takes much longer, why we have to be more patient, why we sometimes get ourselves to the point where we almost run out of patience, but we realize that the end reward is going to be great, is because at least a number, if not all, of the 7 buying roles, or people who influence the buying decision that you see on the screen, are involved in a transaction. Initiators and users, similar to what we initiators, users, and payers, the 3 roles that we are used to in a normal consumer buying transaction. Initiator, the person who has the need, who picked up the problem that needs to be resolved. In the case of a business, it could be that somebody working on a switchboard says, I have problems with my headset. People hear me clearly, but I can't hear them clearly. So maybe on our headphones, there's a problem. Maybe it's so that's the person who deals with it, works with it as somebody on the switchboard, as somebody maybe in a call center, who deals with that, or who experiences that problem every day. They initiate it, they bring it to the attention of their supervisor. They are also the users. They are the ones who need to be happy at the end of the day because they need to use that headset, that specific system on a daily basis. They will not necessarily be the payers. People who influence them are the people who they maybe know, other people working on the switchboard who have different opinions as to where the possible solution lies. One might feel we need to get new headsets. Other ones feel that we need to get a whole new system. That can also be influenced by, for instance, people in the IT department who says that currently it's going to be too much of a challenge for us to completely change our system. It's not cost effective. We haven't budgeted for it, so we have to look at the interim solution. The deciders at the end of the day is usually on a management level in business. It could be a whole board of directors where maybe each have a specific function that they fulfill in the company, and they represent that particular department or function, and that they have their input because it impacts on them directly in some cases and indirectly in other cases. Gatekeepers are usually, to be honest, there's also a name for them in the industry called the bean counters. Those are the financial people. They're the ones who always sort of, you know what, let's look at alternatives. We haven't budgeted for it. So they are and we need those gatekeepers because they are the ones who prevent us from irresponsible spending money irresponsibly. The purchasers and the buyers is, again, like in the case of a consumer, not necessarily going to be the person who uses the product or has the need that needs to be satisfied. In this case, it's usually a financial manager or a CEO of a company or a head of a department, somebody who's not necessarily going to use the new system or headset in the example that I've said, but somebody who needs to, somebody with the authority to make the final decision as to who to buy from and how many to buy. They are usually the payers as well. Okay, so in a business environment, in a business transaction, more people involved, longer process, it's more complex. It's not just a decision of, are we taking coffee or tea today, or as the old saying goes, when you're boarding an airplane, chicken or beef, what they usually ask you when you are on a flight that serves meals. Right. The selling roles, there are a number of selling roles that we can look at. The order takers are usually the people who are not in a persuasive situation, they are not going to get involved in trying to persuade the customer as to what order or what product to select. They're usually there just to finalize it. It's, for instance, the person at the end of the day who's going to um, ensure that the goods are delivered and that the order that is taken is the correct order. They are responsible for the paperwork and stuff like that. They are not necessarily at all in the marketing capacity or in the sales capacity involved in the sales process, although they are part of the selling function. The persuaders and the sustainers, these are the people who, the salespeople who have specific information that they need to inform the buyer about. They ensure that they keep, because as we said, it's a longer transaction. If there's any changes in the information that's available, updated information that's available, maybe a change in the pricing structure, whatever, they keep the potential buyer updated all the time. That helps them to then make a final decision. That's why they are in a persuading capacity. Then you also have the sales function where a particular involvement of a particular individual in the transaction is purely to motivate and to help solve a problem. Very often, that person representing the seller works very closely with the buyer and with different individuals and different departments representing the buyer to ensure that they are very hands-on in how the problem can be resolved. Obviously, the final role, the one of value creator, is where, because you have, and this is usually a role that's only fulfilled once you have engaged in a transaction with the customer, and part of your following up service that you provide to the customer, you fulfill this role of basically a value creator, and you don't necessarily always share. Your role is now, or this person's role is not to persuade. This person's role is to manage the relationship. If there is information that's lacking that can impact on the relationship, this is the person who identifies it and brings it to the attention of the person who has that information, the persuader that we saw on the previous page, who will then obviously follow up with the customer. So there's very much the role of coordinator, overseer of because their main responsibility is keeping the customer happy in whatever way, not necessarily to always offer the solution, but to know at least who will be able to resolve the problem of the customer or the problem the customer has. Now, types of selling that we find, we get trade selling. In trade selling, the main focus of the sales function is here to increase the sales. And you're doing that by, for instance, providing merchandise and promotional support. In other words, dropping off samples, ensuring that for promotional events you are also present, so it's not just the buyer who are displaying the products. You are also there to support, because you are the supplier to that particular organization. You know the products, it's your products, they are just the ones who are selling them. So it's important that you give them that sort of promotional backup as well. Missionary selling is, I think the example I've used is the one of a medical rep, for instance. We know that we buy our medicine, we get our pills and our medication from pharmacies. We don't get it from a doctor. The doctor is the one who does the checkup, who identifies what's wrong, and the doctor is the one who then prescribes certain medication. And he gives you it on a piece of paper and says, go to the pharmacy and get it. The missionary seller is the medical rep who visits the doctor and says, Doc, there's new products on the market. I'm going to leave some samples with you. And they're trying to sell the benefits of the new product. It's up to the doctor, and they're trying to obviously persuade the doctor to rather when they do a recommendation, to recommend that particular new product. It's common practice, and they are not involved in the direct selling. Neither is the doctor who's the service providing the service is also not in the selling. Selling happens at the pharmacy. These people are all in, or the missionary salesperson is just involved in the persuading process, trying to persuade the doctor to recommend a specific product ahead of something else. Technical selling. A technical salesperson is very much involved in the explanation, the demonstration of how a very technical piece of equipment works. They know the technical specifications. They ensure that they explain it to the people who are going to use it. For instance, if you are a company who sells X-ray machines to hospitals, you're not going to just make the sale and then forget about it. You're going to be there the day that it actually is delivered to the hospital. You are going to spend a lot of time with the people who are working on, or who's going to work on that particular X-ray machine, to ensure that they understand all the technical specs of this particular machine and how it works, so it can actually perform at its capacity. So that's your specific role. Because of your technical knowledge, fulfill that specific role in selling. And then you have your new business selling, where your main problem is to identify, or main objective is to identify the need of the customer, and then find the right solution in the form of the right product for that particular, to resolve that particular problem, and so satisfy the need that the customer that you have identified that has. Right. That concludes chapter 14. We'll go to chapter 15 now, and the final chapter deals with all the what they call, what they name for short, ICT, information communication technology. Basically, it comes down to all the equipment that is, or all the tools and gadgets that's available, apps that has initially, when it happened, when the technology started becoming very, very popular and very effective and commonly used, there were certain professions, and sales was one of them, that became or felt very threatened about what technology, the impact that technology can have on their jobs. Is it going to take over my job? Is a machine going to be able to do it because they can do it more, and they can actually never sleep, and they can take messages in the middle of the night, although it's not a case, it's a standardized message. At least there's an immediate reaction or response, which is not the case with human beings. So they become very threatened. But at the end of the day, what has happened with the advances in technology is that it has made communication much more effective. For us to, before we advance, we need to just distinguish clearly between what data and information is. Information technology specifically is the way we research, manipulate, and store information. Data and information. Data is all the information that we collect. All information that we collect. And information is the use of that data. Okay, how we use it is actually most important, because we can collect all the data in the world. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can just gather, but in the day, how do you analyze and correctly use that data? Because it's only informative. It only becomes information if you use the data correctly. The one thing, or one of the things that modern technology has brought us, is that it made the use of data and the storage of data easier, because we can actually have more information available to us. We said earlier on, especially in business transactions, we need a lot of information on a customer. And modern technology has made this possible for us, because what they can store nowadays on a microchip is, compared to this filing space that was necessary in the previous generation, it almost takes up the size of a building. And it's all beneficial to people in sales. It means that we can actually have more information to work with. We can gather our information much wider. We also have software packages that is to our availability, that that work through this data, that analyze this data for us. And if we just basically type in certain keywords, it gives us the information that we want. All the data, if it's captured, which should be captured, when it's captured and stored on the database, you basically take in, I want to know all businesses, the names of all businesses, all engineering or civil engineering businesses in the Western Cape. Okay, right. The Western Cape's wide. It goes all the way to almost to George, where it becomes Southern Cape. But that's also sort of Southwestern district. Is still very much part of the Western Cape. The larger Western Cape goes up to Plettenberg Bay, I think, even. You type that keyword in, and it pops up a list of names. Then you can actually refine your searching and say all civil engineering businesses in the Cape Metropole, for instance, or in the southern suburbs of Cape Town, or in a particular town in the Western Cape. So you can store more information, and you can refine your searches, and it's done much quicker. It's done basically it's available at your fingertips. Where in the past you had to work through files and files and files and files, and that's usually some of those tedious admin jobs that you gave to one of the new junior salespeople who started. I mean, that was part of their responsibilities. So technology has made it easier for us to store more information. It made more information available to us more regularly. But it is still important for us to use this information, to know where to find the information, and to actually use it and update it. It's so important that if there's any new information, it's again capturing it, and to capture it is quite simple. You have to just get into the habit of updating it as new information becomes available. Radio. Where do we store data? On our phones, on our computers, on our tablets, on our flash drives. And there are some people who still are old school. And to a certain extent, although I'm not old school, I do use a lot of, I do have a nice, sorry, my apologies. I do use a nice A5 notepad to capture information. Sometimes I'm not going to necessarily, while I'm talking in some of you say, please sir, can you just have a look at this and this and that. I make a note of it because I'm not going to disrupt the session. I'm not going to open 5, 6, 7 screens. That's not necessary at this point. But I make a note of it, and then I capture it later on onto the system. So the what happened and what was requested still is captured, but I still use a combination. As a matter of fact, the majority of people in sales use a combination of those 4 storage devices that we have listed. GPS is very helpful for people in sales, especially if you're on the road a lot, and then capturing a lot of information, your price list, your catalog, your instruction manuals. That's all stuff that is available basically on your whatever smart device you use and have available or that you have available to use in the sales process. Luanda, since it's only the 2 of us, this is what we have. This is what is necessary. We've covered all 15 chapters in preparation for your test. There's one thing I want to just ask. Have you got? Let me rather ask you. Have you got any questions before I say to you? Good luck. I know you have it. You've got this. I believe you have it. You've been too diligent, despite what has happened to you in this semester, to not be rewarded. And I truly believe that you will be rewarded for your efforts. Have you got any questions about any of the chapters, any of the work that we have done as part of revision, Luanda? Luanda, can I just ask, because I thought, or no, I hoped more students would actually be online. It was expressed, there was a request that closer to your exam date, because your exam date is the 19th. Now that's 3 weeks away. You're going to be writing many modules before that time. So you're not really focusing on necessarily on personal selling at this moment. There was a request that closer to the 19th, maybe on, I know you write on the 17th, the morning of the 17th, you're writing. It could either be the afternoon of the 17th, or it could be, let's say, 10 o'clock on the 18th, the morning before you write your personal selling. That we quickly just have a final session, totally voluntary. Would that work for you? Would you prefer the 17th after you've written your previous one? Or would you prefer it the 18th, the day before you write your personal selling exam? I'm putting everything on you now because I don't want to make the decision myself. I would like the students to be guided, and well, obviously in their absence, they've got no say in the matter because they've missed the opportunity. So I'm putting everything on you now, but I'll be the final one to make a decision. If you say to me the 18th, sir, then I'll say, all right, I'll do it, and I'll send out I'll post the announcement. But I would just like to get your feeling first. Okay, the 18th. Would you say around about 10 in the morning is fine? Is that a good time? It's not too early, it's not too late. Okay, I'll post an announcement this afternoon when I upload the recordings of today, and invite students to join. I'll also then ensure that the link is calendar, and you can just click on the link for that particular day. But thank you very much, Luanda. If there's nothing you want to add or ask at the moment, this is, as they say, the end of the show for the semester, believe it or not. Are you okay? Is there anything else that you want to add? Good. No problem at all. I'll make sure that the recording is uploaded. I'll stop the recording now. I'll make sure that the recordings for today's sessions are